What's up, CIS Lit? It's lit. Just kidding. How we doing? I know I talked to, I think, all of you this week. That was pretty exciting. I'm happy to hear things are going okay. You're starting to get in the kind of groove. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what you do with Song Poet as we're finishing that up. Um, and then we are also going into Sula. So I did actually want to do a little bit of a lecture on Sula stuff this week, just because Sula can be kind of difficult to get into. It's written in a weird format. It's written in chronological order, but it's based on years. But there's definitely some gaps in the years, so pay attention to that. And there are a million characters. So Sula is the main character, but that's also up for debate. It's a story about friendship, motherhood, um, gentrification. Can't believe I forgot that word. God, I'm so white. Um, so pay attention to all of those things. You are focusing on Jungian theory. I know you might want to say Jungian. It's Jungian theory from Carl Jung. And I did put a few things that you should be looking for while you are using Jungian theory. But the big thing is just those classic narrative archetypes. So the hero's journey is a perfect example of Jungian theory because it follows that specific track. You can actually analyze Sula with the hero's journey, that whole circle that I know you learned about before. You can do that really successfully. So I would recommend doing that, but really just looking for those symbols, those main characters, those character tropes that keep coming up in stories. It is a confusing novel, but it is also pretty classically written. So pay attention to a lot of things. It might help to take notes on the characters as you're going, just to keep track of them, because they are kind of all over the place. I do want to do a little reading. Whew, got out of breath talking so much. I do want to do a reading from the very beginning and talk about that a little bit. So this is going to be a little bit longer than my videos normally are, but I feel like I haven't lectured in a while, and I am missing it. First of all, before I go into this, seniors, I'm so sorry that this is how the year is going to end. Governor Walz officially announced that we're not going back, and I just feel terrible that this is what's happening. I know that this is for the best, but God, I'm so sad. So make sure you come back and visit at some point as soon as schools open up again, whether that's next fall or later in the year or at some point. Come back and visit. I'd like to give you all a hug at some point. I just feel terrible that we have to do online school because that's not what high school is supposed to be. High school is supposed to be about those silly things, those little relationships, me making jokes and no one laughing, that kind of thing. So it does kind of suck that this is the way the world is right now, but you know, carry on we must. We must carry on. So I know that these past few weeks have been kind of difficult, and after talking to some of you, talking to some of my other students, I know that some students were hopeful that we were going to come back. So they weren't actually doing anything in online, any of the online homework, because they were thinking, well, I'll just go back and then I'll do it. But now that we're not going back, it's kind of important that we do. So keep on going with Sula. We're going to spend 2 weeks on Sula, so you got some time to actually talk about it. But I do want to do a reading, the very beginning of the story. Starts with a description on the town, Medallion. Okay, so I'm going to read it and then I'm going to talk about it a little bit. See if I can read it through and not talk about it while I go. That'll be my challenge. All right. In that place, where they tore the nightshade and blackberry patches from their roots to make room for the Medallion City Golf Course, there was once a neighborhood. It stood in the hills above the valley town of Medallion and spread all the way to the river. It is called the suburbs now, but when black people lived there, it was called the bottom. One road, shaded by beeches, oaks, maples, and chestnuts, connected it to the valley. The beeches are gone now, and so are the pear trees where children sat and yelled down through the blossoms to passers-by. Generous funds have been allotted to level the stripped and faded buildings that clutter the road from Medallion up to the golf course. They are going to raise the time and a half pool hall, where feet in long tan shoes once pointed down from chair rungs. A steel ball will knock to dust Irene's palace of cosmetology, where women used to lean their heads back on sink trays and doze while Irene lathered new Nile into their hair. Men in khaki work clothes will pry loose the slats of Reba's grill, where the owner cooked in her hat because she couldn't remember the ingredients without it. There will be nothing left of the bottom, The footbridge that crossed the river is already gone. But perhaps it is just as well, since it wasn't a town anyway, just a neighborhood where on quiet days people in the valley houses could hear singing, sometimes banjos, sometimes. And if a valley man happened to have business up in those hills collecting rent or insurance payments, he might see a dark woman in a flowered dress doing a bit of a cakewalk, a bit of black bottom, a bit of messing around to the lively notes of a mouth organ. Her bare feet would raise the saffron dust that floated down on the coveralls and bunion split shoes of the man breathing music in and out of his harmonica. I'm going to stop there. So, that was a lot of information. But why would a story about young girls, female friendships, start with a description of a town? That's what I want you to think about. And I want you to pay attention to the specific details. So, first of all, it's a town called the Bottom, and you will later learn that it is at the top of a hill. But it's called the Bottom because it's supposed to be the bottom of heaven, which is, you'll learn why that's racist. The way it was given to a Black community is racist, taking advantage of former slaves, that kind of thing. No good. But the specific parts of this story that I want you to pay attention to are the names. So this is a town that's no longer there. And Toni Morrison mentions the specific places: Time and a Half Pool Hall, Palace of Cosmetology, Reba's Grill. All of those places are meant to give you the feeling that this town was real. So a lot of this story has a lot of magical realism in it. So if you remember House of the Spirits, La Casa de los Espíritus, I had to read it in Spanish when I was in high school. There's a lot of things in the story that might not make sense, and that's okay. You're going to be super confused at some points, and at other times, you just need to like slow down and let yourself analyze the actual stuff. So, why would they include so many names? To give you the feeling that this town was real, that real people lived there, and that it matters. And the worst part is, they're tearing down all of these places with real character to put in a golf course. Now, if you're anything like me, you know that golf is super white, right? It's a really expensive sport. It's really classist because you have to pay a certain amount of money to become a member at a club if you want to golf there. The actual equipment is expensive. It's expensive to rent. It's a pretty privileged sport. So the fact that they tore down this entire town and put up a golf course means something. So pay attention to that. But really just keep in mind while you're reading that this story is meant to be confusing. Okay? Don't doubt yourself. Don't doubt your reading skills. Just give yourself time to actually read it. Listen to the audiobook if you got it. I know Audible is free right now. And the audiobook of Sula is really good. So if you got time, if you want to go for walks and listen to it, that's fine. But really, I just want you to focus on the symbols. We'll talk about some specific scenes later. I really wish we could talk about this book in person. It's absolutely crushing my soul that we can't. And I'm sorry for rambling so much, but I got a lot to say. Oh, I miss you guys so much. Okay, so this week you are just doing responses to Sula. They're not responses, discussion, online discussion. Your responses aren't due for 2 weeks. So give yourself some time, do what you can. Let me know if you have any questions. Miss you. Bye.